The next book I'm reading is called The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. Not a very exciting cover, but a fantastic book. If you know Aldous Huxley, it's probably because of this book, Brave New World. This is his most famous novel. It was written in the 1930s. I'm sure a lot of people know George Orwell's 1984. This is a book, it's a pretty similar themed book, but it came out about 2 decades before Orwell's 1984. I have not read this book. I can't say much about it, but this is the only reason I know Aldous Huxley's name, because this is important. I did not realize that in addition to writing kind of like the most kind of influential kind of dystopian novels in the kind of the English language, he was also really into like kind of alternative spiritualities. He was really influenced by Buddhism, by Hinduism, by Christian mysticism, Catholic mysticism, and Taoism in particular. He had a pretty good grasp of these various traditions. And in The Perennial Philosophy, he does something that a lot of people have done before and since, which is try to synthesize the different beliefs of these different traditions and really focus on the things that kind of bring them together, right? So in this book, he's not saying all religions are the same. All religions are not the same. What he's saying is that inside of each religion, there are certain traditions, right? So I grew up Christian. There are traditions that are more intellectual, traditions that are more charismatic. Within every religion, there are more kind of like mystical traditions, like traditions in which, like Teresa of Avila, people are trying to connect with God directly. Basically argues, if you look at the mystics within those traditions, they all kind of say the same thing. And he argues that there is a perennial philosophy. In other words, there are certain spiritual beliefs that show up in every world religion at some point. Let me just give you a few examples. The belief that there's kind of one source for everything. Even in like polytheistic religions like Hinduism, for the most part, there are traditions within these faiths that teach, no, there's kind of one source for everything. Another example of what he calls a perennial philosophy is the idea that love is the most important virtue, that love is kind of the thing that conquers everything else. And he also focuses on just kind of like everyday spiritual kind of beliefs about oneself. For example, the idea of like ego death. In Christianity is sometimes called mortification, which means dying to oneself. The idea that in order to progress spiritually, one has to kind of almost sacrifice one's ego, one's wants, one's desires to a kind of higher and greater good. So it's a really fascinating book. It was written in the 1940s, so some of his like language and ideas is a little colonialist, especially when he talks about Native American religions, for example, or indigenous Australian religions or whatever, and some of that's a little cringy, but it's a really, really fascinating read, and it really starts speaking to where I am right now, because I'm in this place where I'm still kind of like taking apart the aspects of Christianity that I was raised that I think are bad, and kind of keeping the parts that are good. This book is really kind of helping me do that, so fantastic read.